All right, time now for a perspective. When we look at the deadly outbreak, which has strained resources in China, revealing fault lines in the country's healthcare system, internal regional rivalries, but also international cooperation to fight the epidemic. While researchers are months and possibly years away from a vaccine, bureaucrats are scrambling. Our guest today is Dorian Malovic, Asia editor at Le Croix newspaper, a former Hong Kong correspondent for the French Daily. Thanks for coming in to France 24.
Yes, glad to be here.
I'd like to begin. China is no stranger to controlling information.
Oh, yeah, they are masters.
There's a lot of debate about the numbers that's coming out of China.
Yes.
That maybe the country is underreporting the number of cases or the deaths. Do you trust what the government is saying?
I mean, basically, we cannot trust the official figures. I mean, the Chinese and statistics, they don't go along pretty well. I mean, they don't like figures. And for years, for decades, I mean, the figures of demographic figures, I mean, and like for the virus, it's underestimated. Basically, it has to be underestimated but we have no other choice than to
Any idea by what factor it's being underestimated?
Okay, I interviewed a sinologist in Seattle, Chinese sinologist, and he told me that the Chinese changed 5 times in 3 weeks the criteria of the diagnosis of the virus. That means if you change the criteria, so the figures are changing. So you don't really know who died first, because we have news about crematorium in Wuhan working 24 hours. That means hundreds of corpses and bodies are burned, but we don't know whether they come from the hospital, if they are registered, or if they come directly from the families, because you have people totally confined in their flats and people are contaminated. They couldn't go to the hospital or find a bed. So when they die, I mean, they bring the body to the crematorium. So that basically, that's also why we cannot tell for sure how many people are infected and how many people died. And you have very famous specialist in London, the Dr. Jefferson from the Imperial College, who is talking about how much higher figures. So really, that's a really big concern, and we have no choice. And the WHO, I mean, the World Health Organization, is not better informed than us.
No, they're not very informed. There's a lot of concern about the transparency in China, but maybe part of the criticism could fall on the U.S.'s shoulders. Donald Trump has praised Xi Jinping for his handling of the crisis, but his advisors, the Washington Post, reporting that this is probably just exacerbating the problem.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump is also praising Kim Jong-un in North Korea. I mean, the direct relationship between Donald Trump and the big leaders, it's totally, has to be totally disconnected. I mean, the administration knows better, and they know that for sure. I mean, the figures are not the real figures. Okay, so even Donald Trump say, it's going to be finished in April. I mean, it's the same kind of declaration that nobody cared about.
Well, let's put the bureaucrats aside. On the ground in China, there's reports of provinces withholding key supplies from one another.
Yes.
The people must be frustrated. They must be scared. They're holed up in their homes.
Yes.
How much pressure is this putting on Beijing?
In fact, the challenge for Beijing from the beginning is, we knew from December, they knew from December that there was a new virus. They knew it. And then the problem for them is not only to manage the sanitarian crisis, but then also the communication crisis and the political narration, the narrative for the outside world. That's why it took so long also for the authorities to declare to the world that there was a real big crisis. The problem is in between December and Xi Jinping big speech on January 20th, declaring there was a real problem, thousands and millions of Chinese traveled because it was Lunar New Year. And they traveled within China. So you see, it's all over China and abroad also. So that means in between transparency. Transparency is not in the lexicon of the Communist Party.
Real quickly, It remains to be seen how this crisis plays
Oh,
out.
yes.
But
Yeah.
in 2 years, we have the 19th National Congress.
Yes.
Do we have any idea of this crisis will have a major impact on that event?
I mean, for sure, they're going to postpone it. You can imagine the 3,000 deputies, lawmakers, coming to Beijing. Concretely, it's impossible. They have to be on quarantine for people coming from the outside Beijing. And you have another meeting with 2,000 delegates. So it would be a wrong message to send to the population, say, oh, we have to be confined, and then all the people are there. But it's a big, big problem because it's the major political event every year in China. So the crisis is really serious, but they have no choice. They have no choice, actually.
All right. Thank you very much, Dorian. Dorian Malovic from La Croix newspaper.